project is brought to you by Big Tine. Attract, develop, grow.
That means what I think it means. We're in trouble.
Case IH. Rethink productivity.
Dear Lord in heaven.
Hawk Optics. Vision accomplished.
Hey, what a sham hill.
Deer Grow. Better food plots, bigger deer. Scentlock. The most effective whitetail gear ever made.
Better find myself some camouflage.
You know, whenever I think about the Raven and kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together and kind of learning it over the last couple years, the Griffin field is one that really sticks out in my mind. You know, we've had a lot of encounters in there. Hosey killed a good buck in there this year. But after hunting it a couple years, you know, we've really realized as many encounters as we've had and as many deer as we've seen in there, it needed some tweaking for sure. We're out on the Raven today and we're coming up with a new strategy for the Griffin field here. This is one of our bigger plots on the Raven, close to 4 acres, in a plot that we've hunted quite a bit the last couple years and had good activity in here, but we've only got one set of stands over here to the north of me right here. We got about 1.5 acres of clover on that side of the road, but what we've noticed is the majority of the movement has been on the south side of the plot. We really don't have a tree or any way to hunt it from that side. So we come in here today, dust and disc this up right here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay it out with Borderline and hopefully be able to create some pinches and some funnels here. And we're actually gonna put 2 elevated platforms and be able to hunt it out of bog ground blinds. And we think by getting out here and getting in this Borderline and creating the funnels and the pinches, we'll be able to make pretty much a little kill hole out of it whenever we're done. But we've got a strip of Borderline right here running east to west. It's probably a little over 200 yards, and we'll make a big gap in it right here in the middle, and we'll have one platform to the east of the gap and one platform to the west, and that way we can hunt it pretty much on any wind. And we've got them choked down already as far as where they can come out with how we cleared this food plot and pushed the windrows to the sides that we don't want them entering the food plot on. So once we get this in here, it ought to make it a lot more huntable. That's the problem when you're developing these bigger food plots, just like this one's almost 4 acres, and it's good to have those destination fields like that, but sometimes they can be hard to bow hunt. So hopefully by what we're doing today with the Borderline and being able to create these pinches and these funnels, we're gonna make it a lot more huntable and also be able to narrow them down where they're moving and have them in bow range. So it should work out pretty nice once we get it set up. I jumped on my phone, I got on OnX, and I actually used the tracking feature on the app to go around the perimeter of the food plot, see exactly what we had to work with as far as size goes for where we were going to be planting the different blends of Big Tine. And I actually laid out the perimeter of the food plot and then laid out where we wanted our Borderline and could see, you know, how much we were going to have to work with on both sides of that for what blends of Big Tine we were going to put in there for this fall. It ought to work out slick. We're pretty limited here on the Griffin field on trees that we could get stands in, and that's kind of why we're setting it up differently this year. After we hunted it last year, we had some good encounters in here. Hosey killed a good buck in here, but most of the movement was to the south of where we could get a tree stand in. So we're gonna use Borderline and kind of create some funnels and some pinches. And we're gonna set up a couple elevated platforms and actually probably hunt it out of bog ground blinds this year more than anything, just from what we saw last year and where the deer movement was. You know what we're running into with the Raven is we've only had it a couple years, and it was raw timber when we got it. It didn't have any of the food plots in on it, so they're not showing up on the maps on any mapping program. And the cool thing about OnX is we can go into these places, we can use the tracking app, or we can use the tracking feature on the app and actually mark the perimeter of these food plots so we can see exactly what shape they are, exactly what size they are, and we can look and map them out and lay them out right there on the app. Google can't even do that. The cool thing about the Borderline is, and putting the holes in it strategically, is those bucks will have to come through those holes to see out into the other parts of the food plot and to be able to check does out there. So you're kind of creating more movement within the food plot itself once they're here, you know, on this destination plot. So it'll hopefully create, you know, some funnels and some pinches to where it'll make it pretty much a little kill hole, we're hoping. You know, like I said, it was developed for access, but you can really use it for edges and to manipulate deer, cut holes in it, cut notches in it, create pinch points and funnels. I mean, the sky is the limit for this stuff. If you're standing right there where you guys are at with the cameras, I'm probably gonna want that blind right in this area right here. That'd be about a 25 yard shot. So I'm gonna put a line right here because we're not gonna plant this gap. We'll plant it with our brassica blend. So I'm gonna draw a line right there, and I'll probably make it the gap probably 35 to 40 yards wide. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we'll have borderline back to the east here. So right across here, this will all be open planted. And we're gonna have about a 40-yard gap right here. This is gonna be nice right here, man. This is gonna create a good little pinch, and it'll be wide enough so they don't feel like they're choked down too much or pinched too much. So it ought to work out about perfect. We've used borderline over the last couple of years, and the crazy thing about it is we started using it for access and to block off and to use it almost as a screening feature to be able to block ourselves off from these food plots getting in and out. But the cool thing about it is over the last couple of years, we figured out that we can manipulate deer with it to our advantage too, and make them and put them exactly where we want to put them. So it's a dang cool extra kind of benefit to the borderline that originally going into this thing, we didn't even realize that we could utilize it for.
The Raven Project is brought to you by
Outdoor Edge Knives, Field to Freezer, and everything in between.
Hooeyman, your land, your legacy. OnX Hunt app, know where you stand. Baker Implement, trusted equipment of the Raven Project.